Breaking. King Charles has just publicly destroyed Keir Starmer's tax plans in a speech so devastating that Labour MPs are already plotting to remove him from power. The monarch spoke just 17 words Westminster insiders are calling the most brutal royal intervention in modern British history. And what happened next could end this government before it even gets started. If you want to see how this constitutional crisis explodes, hit that subscribe button right now, because the next 72 hours will determine Britain's future. Here's what sparked the chaos. 3 days ago, at exactly 11:42 a.m., Chancellor Rachel Reeves stood in Parliament and unveiled Labour's new tax proposals. Her message was blunt. Working families would face increased national insurance contributions. Inheritance tax thresholds would be slashed by 40%. Capital gains tax would jump to 39%. She called it necessary fiscal responsibility. Small business owners across Britain called it something else entirely, the death of the middle class. Within hours, the backlash began. But Starmer wasn't backing down. The Prime Minister doubled down instead. At Prime Minister's questions yesterday, he defended every penny, every percentage point, every painful measure. It was political suicide dressed up as courage. His exact words were chilling. Standing at the dispatch box with that trademark robotic delivery, Starmer declared, "Those who have benefited most from this country must now contribute more. The era of special privileges is over. Everyone will pay their fair share, and I make no apologies for that." The response was immediate and brutal. Conservative benches erupted in jeers. Even some Labour backbenchers shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Social media exploded with hashtags like #taxattack and #Starmer's the thief, trending within minutes. But nobody expected what came next. Within hours, the hammer fell from the one place Starmer couldn't ignore: Buckingham Palace. Sources inside the royal household describe an atmosphere of barely contained fury. King Charles, normally bound by strict political neutrality, was reportedly appalled by the proposals, not because of the tax increases themselves, but because of who they targeted. According to senior palace advisors speaking on condition of anonymity, the king viewed the measures as a direct assault on the very people who built modern Britain. Meanwhile, British veterans who served in the Falklands, Iraq, and Afghanistan are being told their military pensions will now be taxed at brutal new rates. James Patterson, a 72-year-old former Royal Marine from Portsmouth, was interviewed by the Daily Telegraph yesterday. He broke down in tears as he described how he'll lose £1,800 annually from his already modest pension. "I gave 40 years to this country," Patterson said, voice shaking. "I was shot twice defending the Union Jack, and now my own government is robbing me to pay for God knows what." While veterans like Patterson struggle to heat their homes this winter, MPs enjoy taxpayer-funded second homes, subsidized restaurants, and expense accounts that would make your head spin. We're talking about politicians claiming thousands in heating allowances while pensioners freeze. Labour MPs alone claimed over £2 million in expenses last quarter. That's £2 million while they tell veterans to tighten their belts. The contrast is so obscene, so morally bankrupt, that even lifelong Labour voters are questioning their loyalty. This isn't just bad policy anymore. This is a declaration of war on the people who made this country great. But wait, because there's another layer to this that makes it even worse. These tax plans don't just hit veterans. They devastate family farms that have been passed down through generations. Sarah Williams, a 63-year-old farmer from Yorkshire, explained through tears how the inheritance tax changes will force her to sell the 300-acre farm her family has worked since 1847. "My grandfather survived both world wars to keep this land," she told ITV News. "My father worked himself to death at 71 to pass it to me, and now the government says my children will have to pay £600,000 in taxes just to inherit their own heritage." Stories like Sarah's are repeating across rural Britain. The National Farmers Union estimates that 47% of family farms will be forced to sell within the next decade if these tax plans go through. These aren't wealthy landowners. These are families who work dawn to dusk, 7 days a week, to produce the food that feeds Britain. And Starmer's response when confronted about this? He said farmers should diversify their income streams and adapt to modern economic realities. That single statement cost Labor 12 points in rural constituencies. It exposed a government completely disconnected from the people it's supposed to serve. Then something unprecedented happened, something nobody saw coming. King Charles shattered 70 years of royal protocol with a speech so pointed, so carefully calibrated, that constitutional experts are calling it a political earthquake. At a charity event for military veterans at St. James Palace yesterday evening, he delivered what sounded like a gentle tribute to service and sacrifice. But those who understand royal communication heard something else entirely, a devastating takedown of Labor's entire agenda. Those who serve this nation with honor deserve more than our gratitude, King Charles declared, his voice carrying a quiet intensity that made every word land like a hammer. They deserve security, dignity, and the knowledge that their sacrifices are valued not just in speeches, but in deeds. He paused, letting the silence sharpen the moment, before delivering the 17 words that changed everything. When policy fails to reflect that basic moral obligation, we risk losing the very soul of Britain itself. 17 words. That's all it took for the monarch to effectively declare war on Downing Street. Palace insiders say earlier drafts of the speech were even harsher, but senior advisors convinced the king to soften the language. What the public heard was the diplomatic version. The original apparently included direct references to betrayal and broken promises. According to one palace source speaking to the Telegraph on condition of anonymity, King Charles personally rewrote the speech 4 times, each version more pointed than the last, before settling for the final wording, which still managed to devastate Starmer while maintaining plausible deniability. The optics are catastrophic for Starmer. Here is a monarch who almost never speaks against the government, yet even he has reached a breaking point. A monarch who spent his entire life mastering political neutrality, breaking decades of precedent to defend ordinary Britons. And standing opposite him is a prime minister who looks increasingly like he's forgotten who he's supposed to serve. The domino effect was immediate and brutal. Within 20 minutes of Charles's speech, the pound sterling dropped 1.3% against the dollar. By morning, financial markets had wiped £12 billion from the UK economy. International investors, already nervous about Labour's socialist tendencies, saw the royal rebuke as confirmation that Britain's government had lost its way. Goldman Sachs downgraded UK growth projections. Morgan Stanley issued warnings about political instability. The FTSE 100 shed 300 points in a single trading session. Currency traders in London described the panic as unlike anything they'd seen since the Liz Truss budget disaster. One senior trader at Barclays told Reuters, when the King of England basically calls your economic policy amoral, investors run for the exits. We saw £15 billion in capital flight in the first 6 hours alone. But the real chaos was happening inside Westminster itself. Labour MPs who had reluctantly supported the tax plan suddenly found their courage. Within hours of King Charles's speech, the first cracks appeared. 7 backbenchers signed a letter demanding Reeves reconsider the veteran pension taxes. By midnight, that number had grown to 23. By this morning, 41 Labour MPs had publicly broken ranks, the largest internal rebellion since the Jeremy Corbyn era. On social media, #DefendVeterans was trending #1 globally for 16 straight hours, generating over 8 million posts. Protests erupted across Manchester, Liverpool, Birmingham, and Newcastle. These weren't the usual organized demonstrations, but spontaneous gatherings of angry pensioners, veterans, and working-class families who felt betrayed. One video from Leeds went viral. A 90-year-old World War II veteran burning his Labour membership card while weeping. "I voted Labour for 70 years, he said to the camera. Never again. The clip hit 4 million views in 18 hours. Polls reflected catastrophic damage. A YouGov survey released this morning found Labor's approval rating had plummeted from 38% to 26% in just 72 hours. Among voters over 65, the party's traditional backbone, support collapsed by 19 points. For the first time since the election, the Conservatives held a commanding lead, and Reform UK, sensing blood in the water, surged to 21%, their highest numbers ever. Inside number 10 Downing Street, the atmosphere has descended into complete panic. Ministers are having shouting matches in corridors. Cabinet members who supported the tax plans are now desperately trying to distance themselves. Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner allegedly confronted Starmer in a meeting so heated that security staff heard screaming through closed doors. According to 3 separate sources, she was overheard saying, "You've destroyed us. The king just made you look like the villain in a fairy tale, and you walked right into it." Chancellor Rachel Reeves looked shell-shocked during a television interview this morning, struggling to defend policies she had spent months designing. Her hands were visibly shaking when Sky News anchor Kay Burley asked if she regretted the veteran pension measures. Reeves couldn't even answer directly, instead mumbling something about difficult choices and fiscal responsibility. Sources say she offered her resignation twice, but Starmer refused to accept it because losing his chancellor now would be an admission of total failure. WhatsApp groups with names like Save Labor and Emergency Response have become digital battlegrounds. MPs are plotting. Some want Starmer out immediately. Others argue they need to ride out the storm. But nobody, not a single person in Labor's leadership, thinks they can survive this unchanged. The question isn't if they'll reverse course, it's when and how much damage they'll take in the process. Shadow cabinet members are receiving hundreds of emails daily from constituents threatening never to vote Labour again. One MP from a safe Labour seat in Wales told the BBC anonymously that his constituency office has been inundated with angry phone calls, some from people in tears, others threatening to protest outside his home. Even Starmer's closest allies privately admit he looked rattled, cornered, and increasingly detached from reality. One senior Labour MP, speaking anonymously to The Times, said something that should terrify Downing Street. He stopped listening. He thinks if he just holds firm, people will respect his conviction. But conviction without wisdom is just stubbornness, and stubbornness in the face of a royal rebuke is political death. But here's the part that could bring down the entire government. Leaked cabinet documents obtained by the Daily Mail show that Treasury officials warned Starmer and Reeves 3 weeks ago that targeting veteran pensions would be politically catastrophic. The documents allegedly include detailed projections of public backlash, polling damage, and constitutional risks. Senior civil servants reportedly used phrases like electoral suicide and constitutional crisis in their assessments. One leaked memo from the Cabinet Office, dated October 18th, explicitly warned that measures affecting military pensions risk provoking unprecedented royal intervention, given His Majesty's well-documented commitment to armed forces welfare. According to multiple ARN sources, Starmer dismissed the warnings as conservative scaremongering. He reportedly told his inner circle, "We weren't elected to be popular, we were elected to fix the country." If these documents are real and if they show what insiders claim, then Starmer knowingly walked into this disaster. He was warned this would destroy his government. He was warned the king might intervene. He was given every opportunity to choose a different path. And he charged ahead anyway, because he genuinely believed he knew better than everyone else. The arrogance of that decision, the sheer political recklessness, is breathtaking. The optics are devastating. This wasn't a mistake or a miscalculation. It was ideological blindness. And the British people who gave Labour a massive mandate are watching their government commit political suicide in real time. Meanwhile, Rishi Sunak is orchestrating what might be the greatest political comeback in modern British history. While Starter implodes and Labour tears itself apart, Sunak appeared on BBC's Question Time looking calm, measured, and prime ministerial. His message was simple and devastatingly effective. We warned about Labour's tax plans during the campaign. We said they would hurt working families and betray those who served. We were called liars. Now even the king is saying we were right. No mockery, no gloating, just quiet vindication. The polls tell the story. Conservatives have surged to 36%, their highest number since before the election. For the first time in months, voters trust the Tories more on economic management. Sunak isn't just rebuilding his party's reputation, he's positioning himself as the adult in the room while Labour burns down the House. And here's the twist nobody saw coming. Nigel Farage and Reform UK are now polling at 21%, just 5 points behind Labour. Farage has spent the last 48 hours wrapping himself in the Union Jack and defending King Charles with the passion of a true believer. While Labour attacks our veterans and ignores our king, Farage declared at a rally in Essex, Reform UK will always stand for British values, British traditions, and the British people. His strategy is working brilliantly. Disillusioned Labour voters are flooding to Reform UK. Working-class communities that switched from Conservative to Labour in the last election are now considering a third option. For the first time in British political history, we are looking at a genuine three-way race. Any party could win, and nobody knows what comes next. The next 7 days are absolutely critical. Parliament returns from recess on Monday, and Starmer faces what could be the most brutal Prime Minister's questions of his career. Conservative MPs are preparing a coordinated assault. Reform UK has tabled an emergency motion calling for the tax plans to be scrapped entirely. Even some Labour MPs are considering voting against their own government. Senior Tory strategist Lord Frost told GB News that Conservative researchers have compiled over 200 questions designed to systematically dismantle every aspect of Labour's economic agenda. They're not just attacking the tax plans anymore, they're questioning Starmer's judgment, his leadership, and his very fitness to govern. If Starmer loses that vote, constitutional experts say he'd have no choice but to resign or call a snap election. And calling an election now, with Labour polling at 26%, would be political suicide. But refusing to back down could be even worse, proving he's lost control of his own party. Britain is watching a government collapse in real time, a prime minister isolated and desperate, and a constitutional monarchy reminding everyone why it still matters. This crisis will be studied for decades as the moment when a leader's arrogance collided with a nation's values and lost spectacularly. Not since the abdication crisis of 1936 has Britain witnessed such a fundamental clash between crown and government. At its epicenter stands Keir Starmer, looking increasingly like a man who forgot that, in Britain, attacking veterans and ignoring the king isn't conviction, it's career suicide. So here's the question that matters. Does Starmer survive this constitutional crisis, or is his government finished before it even started? Did King Charles just destroy Labour with 17 words? Or will Starmer dig in and fight back even harder? What do you think happens when Parliament returns on Monday? Will Labour MPs finally rebel and force him out? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one because this is the conversation Britain needs to have right now. If this story shocked you as much as it shocked us, share it with everyone who needs to see what's really happening in Westminster. The mainstream media is already trying to downplay this crisis, but we won't. Tomorrow, we're breaking down the leaked cabinet documents that show exactly how much Starmer's inner circle knew and when they knew it. The truth is going to shock you. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications because the next 72 hours will determine whether Britain gets a new prime minister or descends into complete political chaos. This is history happening right now, and you're watching it unfold in real time.